My name is Jackie Craver, and Custom Costumes is a business that I started with, first of all, with two friends, and one of them decided to leave the business, and then it ended up to be Phyllis Zylstra and myself. And we started it, I think it was like in the mid-'80s, and we've been making Dutch costumes for people in Pella and for the Queen and Court of Pella's Tulip time and for the Duchesses for several years. It depends which costume we're making, but it can take anywhere from probably 25 hours to maybe 60 or 70 hours depending on the handwork that's involved and how many pieces are in the costume and just the details of the costume. Sometimes there's beadwork or embroidery, so it can really depend on which costume it is. That we decide usually right around tulip time for the next tulip time, and we choose it either on a style that is very popular and common, like Volendam or Marken. If we haven't done that for several years, then we'll redo that one. And sometimes we chose costumes that weren't well known or not much, they had not been seen much in the what people wore at tulip time, and so we thought it would be fun to get a new style out there that people could learn about. The major uniqueness about them this year is they have a lot of cross-stitching on the hat and on the shawl, and that's really unusual. And that was one of the reasons why we chose this costume, because it was so unusual and just really adds a neat touch to it and makes them really unique. We sometimes had our favorite parts to do. Like this year, Phyllis did all the cross-stitching because she loves to do cross-stitching. And since she was kind of suffering from the effects of her cancer treatments, it just ended up this year that we really did things a little differently. I would be the one that would do all the pinning and the prep work, and she would be the one sitting at the sewing machine sewing, and it just kind of evolved because it needed to evolve that way, and that was really different for us. So that was really unusual and different for us. Oh, the hardest part probably is the pattern, because there usually aren't patterns, and it's kind of like the more you learn about the patterns of the different costumes, you sort of get an idea of how they would have done it, even though you maybe aren't sure about it. And that's kind of the way it was this year. The Queen's jacket is a lot like the Volendam jacket, kind of the same style. So we pretty much started out with the Volendam pattern for her jacket, and even though it doesn't even look like Volendam because it uses completely different fabrics and trims and stuff, but when you looked at the style, you could see that it was very closely related to the Volendam jacket. Well, I wear a Marken costume because it's one of my favorites, but I do have to say that this year's Queen and Court is really high up on my list. And what I really like about it is the combination of all the different fabrics and the different prints and the different colors, and somehow it all just kind of works together, even though separately you would think, oh, this maybe doesn't match, but when you put them all together, then they look fine.
One way our Queens and Court members can remember their reign is the beautiful, totally authentic costumes given them by the Historical Society and sewn by very talented seamstresses who research every stitch. Years ago, the royal court wore formal gowns and rode on a float through the parade. Now each court member has a costume unique to their year as royalty and rides through the parade by horse-drawn carriage, beautifully decorated with colorful tulips.
The costumes we are wearing are those typically worn in the fishing village of Urk in the province of Flevoland in the 1850s. The location of the village of Urk throughout its 1,000-year history has remained the same, but has been governed by two different provinces in the Netherlands. The newest province, Flevoland, was created in 1986.
Queen Hannah wears the summer festive costume worn by women in the village of Urk in the mid-1800s. Her floral printed skirt and jacket are cut from the same cloth. The sleeves on her jacket are fashionably turned up to reveal the delicate print lining. Her ribbon-accented striped apron enhances the colors of her jacket and skirt.
Each attendant is wearing a weekday costume worn by the women in the village of Urk during that same time period. The floral jacket with its plaid-banded oversleeves is covered by a floral croppla. In contrast to these charming components are a black skirt and a brown apron. The delicate handwork that embellishes our hats and scarves was done by our dear seamstress Phyllis Sylstra, who passed away in December. We will always treasure these hats and scarves as precious keepsakes stitched by her. Phyllis, along with Jackie Craver, have been sewing and researching Dutch costumes for Pella's royal courts for over 35 years.
Our wooden shoes are hand-painted by Sheila DeHaan. She comes up with the patterns by looking at the detailing on our costumes.
My favorite part of my costume is my slip, because it's a little hidden part that no one knows about and it has pretty colors.
My favorite part of my costume is the top because the colors complement each other.
My favorite part of my costume is the hat because of the delicate embroidery on the back and it tops off our costumes.
My favorite part of the costume is the necklace because the coral beads accent the costume beautifully. My favorite part of the costume are the wooden shoes because they're actually really comfortable.